All right, amazing morning, everyone. So thank you all so much for being here. What a great way to start out our programming for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We know there were lots of great programs had last week, but this is our first official program. So for those of you I don't know, my name is Anissa Smith, and I am the director of our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on campus here at Penn State Abington, and it gives me great pleasure to be here with you all today. Super excited. In my dream that I had, we would all be sitting around the table in the banquet room. We would be having amazing brunch, French toast, bacon, home fries. Can you all feel it and see it? And we would be able to touch and agree and really spend this time with each other. So thank you for being here today virtually. So my word for the year is reimagine, personally and professionally, and just trying to reimagine how I do everything that I do and try to make it still feel it. And so my hope is that this virtual visual presentation will empower, inspire you all, and the elements that we have tried to add will also allow you to get closer to the people who we are sharing space with now. We're up to about 34 participants. How amazing is that? And so we're going to just jump right in the essence of time. We will go right up into 1:15, but please feel free whenever you need to jump off to jump off. You won't miss a thing because we are recording, and we will get this presentation up on our YouTube site where you can find all of our programs and videos there. I will say with work-life balance, I have a 1-year-old puppy dog who you will hear in the background, as well as a 14-year-old and my wife. So we're all working in the house. So I'm not apologizing because we're all doing it. So I will try my best to mute myself when I can. And thank you in advance to the amazing O'Day student ambassadors who will help me pull today off. All righty, let me go back to sharing my screen. So we are going to jump right in. Super excited. So why a legacy event? And so I came to Penn State Abington in August of 2019, and then celebrating MLK was something that, of course, I pondered upon how I would do it. And in my days at previous institutions, in my time at Westchester University, I just remember this amazing brunch. But the word legacy is so important to me because I really like to think about the legacy that I will leave, as well as encourage our students to leave a legacy right here at Penn State Abington, right? I always tell students, when you graduate, what have you left here on campus that people will still know your name years to come? And who has a greater legacy than Martin Luther King Jr.? So when you think about the word legacy, what comes to mind? And for housekeeping, if you could use the raise the hand feature, that would be amazing, since there is a lot of us, but we really want to hear from you. So this is just not about me talking. I want to hear from you. You can definitely use the chat. We love the chat. But when you hear the word legacy, what comes to mind? And for my team, if you have the chat up, I can't. All right, Malia, you up first.
Like leaving a mark.
Okay, leaving a mark. What else?
So Abigail said impact.
Thank you. When you hear the word legacy, like what else? What do you think of?
Caitlin said inspiring others to leave their own positive impact.
Okay, awesome.
Beverly said everlasting, and Elizabeth said hero.
Amazing. So a little bit about me, I wanted to share because I not only practice what I preach, and I shared this, of course, at last year's brunch, our inaugural brunch that we had. But I like people to know who I am outside of Penn State Abington. And so I am a serial entrepreneur. So I do have 3 businesses outside of being a full-time professional. But I saw a need in the community, specifically the Black community, for culinary artists who weren't being supported, who weren't being given opportunities or resources. And while I was running my cupcake business, I noticed that there wasn't support. So I actually founded the Black Food and Dessert Expo 3 years ago. And I've dedicated my time to helping other Black-owned chefs, bakers, beverage vendors, bartenders, foodpreneurs in general to help grow their businesses. And so in the midst of the pandemic, I was able to run a successful expo this past October. So there's a little bit of pictures. This is from one of our largest expos a few years ago. In addition, I also own a consultant and diversity firm in which I travel and speak and really just try to be a light. And this is me with some students at local universities. And for me, it's really about how I try to make other people's lives better, right? And so as I present to you today, and as you see the selection of Martin Luther King speeches that I've chosen for us to reflect on, I just want you to know I really truly embody the spirit myself, and that this is so much more than work for me. So I definitely hope you all will jump in with me today and go on this small piece of a journey that I hope to take you on today. So what we're going to do, in my hope, I have so much optimism for 1 hour, y'all. I know, right? But what we're going to do is hopefully try to get through these small clips of our, sorry, 1 minute. Avery, can you get Coco, please? Thanks, y'all. What we're going to try to do is go through these small clips of 5 of MLK's most impactful speeches to me. And when we go through the clip, we won't be able to break out after each clip, but we are going to break out into random breakout groups where you'll get to process one question after you watch the clip with a small intimate group of 3 to 4 people, hopefully whom you don't know, because the other point is for us to meet people around campus that we don't know, and we need to do more of that virtually. So we'll probably just break out after 2. I'm watching the time because of course a large portion of our time today will be spent giving out our Drum Major of Justice Awards. And so we're going to jump right into it. So this clip is not one we're going to break out after, but it was sent to me by Tina Vance Knight, who's our director of CPD. She's so amazing. And then I looked more into it because I had never heard this news clip. In the way, being a Black woman, I had never heard MLK like break down what being a Negro was, or anyone for that instance, break it down in this way. So I wanted to lead with this interview. As well, if you want to watch the chat, when we get to each interview, my staff will put a link to the full transcript as well as the full video so that you can copy and paste those for yourself. As well, we'll send them out after. I think listening to MLK speeches is one thing, but actually reading the words and reflecting on the words and how it even translates to what's going on right here in 2020 is something I hope that you take away for today. All right, so let's take a look. Please let me know you can hear it with the thumbs up.
But so far, why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are Black?
That's a part of it, and that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here and changed, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps. But it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading. But so far.
Yes. So I'm not sure if anyone has heard that interview, but please do watch the full clip of the interview. But I wanted to lead with that because as a 40-year-old woman, I've never heard it put that way. For me, it resonated, and I hope that it did for you. So I definitely wanted to lead with that. So we are going to move right on.
But so far.
Why are they?
To this piece. So hopefully that was impactful for you, but I want to lead with this piece. So show of hands, wave. Have you ever heard of MLK's blueprint speech? Anyone? No? Wow, great. So this was a speech he gave in 1967 in my city of Philly, PA, at a local high school 1 year before his assassination. And I just love it because he just talks about some powerful stuff. So I want you to listen. But the question I'm going to ask you is, of the points he gives you, which one stands out to you the most? And so remembering that he was talking to high school students, I think working with college students, it resonates the same way. You're creating a foundation and a blueprint for the life you want to live, right? And so what does that look like? And so let's take a listen to a short clip.
This is the most important and crucial period of your lives, for what you do now and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one, in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it, and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. Finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal staff. We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
All right. So our next
This
question
is the most
it's just that. What stood out to you most about those points? I have chills. I have goosebumps. I don't know about y'all, and I've listened to this so many times, but it really just reminds me like when it gets hard, and it's been hard, y'all. 2020 was hard, right? But we have to keep moving. All right. So my lovely co-host break us up. So we're not going to have time to like reflect when we come back. So the whole point of the breakout rooms is quick introductions and really just everyone to share a quick 30 to 60 minute reflection on that point, and then we'll come right back. All right, Habiba? You can just throw us in the rooms. Don't worry about the staff. That's okay. Perfect. Awesome sauce. So as we start to come back, while people are coming back, I'll just reflect. So hopefully that was good for y'all. Was it good for y'all to just talk with a couple of people? I got put in the room with Gina and Melvin. So we were like, hey y'all. But even just, being with some of my closest colleagues, being able to reflect with them. So I'm going to move on because I'm looking at our time, but please use the chat as well. But what I loved about what Melvin said is like, he was taking notes of like things or words that really stood out for him. And that's what I'm hoping you all do. Like, this is as much as you all get from it as us giving it, but it's something that could be done in a full day's workshop. And I'm trying to do it in an hour. So thanks for being here. All right, we're going to jump right back into the presentation. All right. Why does it look like that? All right, so of course we all know of the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And where was the "I Have a Dream"? Oh, never mind. It says it on the thing. I can't even ask a trivia question because it says it. But I don't know if you all can see my background, but at the Lincoln Memorial, right in Washington D.C., and I look at this from what 1963, and look how it just looked, you know, a few days ago on 2021, y'all, and like how far we've come and like everything that had happened. And that alone is just a testimony right there. But we're going to jump right in. So a mere piece of this, and we'll move on.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
All right. So if you haven't, I mean, we're all taught that speech in school, right? But the significance of it, as well as how the March on Washington is celebrated every August. And I know I haven't had a chance to get down to DC for an August celebration, but it reiterated a personal goal of mine is to be in one of the marches that happen now during our time. And that's why that August 28th date is so significant. So my question, we won't go to breakout rooms because I want to be sure we go for one of the most important speeches, but what is your dream for this world, and what role will you have in making it happen? I always like to ask people, like, what does change look like for you, right? Like what would you envision if you can envision a world? So take a note for yourself, drop it in the chat as we move on. But what is your vision or your dream for this world, and like, what do you hope? That's the question I have for all of you. So I'm going to go through my brief remarks, but these are literally just to get you all thinking. I think the 3 A words are thrown around a lot, right? Whether we're allies or advocates, or, you know, and how we do activism. But a reminder that these words are verbs. And regardless of what we do, it's about our actions and not what we say we are. And how important it is to be in active pursuit, right? So it's not enough to be against something. You know, a lot of people are talking about what anti-racism is. And what I love about anti-racism work is that it's the active pursuit to eradicate racism, right? It's not oh, I'm against it and I'm sitting here doing nothing at all. And right, and just wanted to remind you of those 3 words and how you reflect on them as we move forward. A lot of people get stuck in one thing, such as racism, but there's classism, there's ageism, there's sexism, there's sizeism. There's so many isms that needed, and how can we be against one and not be helping all? And so just a reminder to continue the fight for all of the things that we're trying to get rid of, and be passionate about continuing our learning. And just some tips for me, I'll just click them in really fast. Click them in too fast. In terms of activism, but I just mentioned, if I had more time, of course, like I would go through all of these, but number 7 is most important for me. If we just lead with love and respect and humility, and remember that we're people, and let's just start there, right? Let's just start there, and then be sure that we're listening, because a lot of times we listen to hear what we want the other person to say and not really what they're saying. So we can't help people in a way that we want to help them. We have to help people in a way that they need to be helped to progress. And so I just want to drop those nuggets: chicken, vegan, steak, whatever kind of nuggets you all eat. See, we're inclusive here, as a point of reminder. And so moving right into our awards session, and we are on time, and I'm so glad. And if you can stay to the end, please do, because the last speech we share is a piece of MLK's last speech, actually the day before his assassination. Anyone know what it was called? What was the speech the day before his assassination? What was it called? Anyone? Oh gosh. Who said it?
The favorite line, never mind. You already have a response there in chat. Let them go.
Okay,
Ever said Mountaintop.
Yes, the Mountaintop Speech. So if you can, that's the last speech. We're going to break out into a breakout room and kind of leave like with hopefully something really powerful. But so why I selected to call the award that we give out the Drum Major Award, I just want to make sure we know. Anyone know the significance of the Drum Major? What does it come from in terms of MLK? Anyone? It was his last, not speech, but it was the title of his last.
The last sermon.
Yes, awesome. His
Ebenezer.
Yes, Ebenezer Baptist Church, Atlanta, Georgia. You got it. All right, so click them all in. So what Drum Major is about is exactly, what you may think of in a band if you think drum major, but he titled his last sermon, The Drum Major, and he was talking about the biblical example of James and John, I think in the book of Matthew, I want to say, and how we all have it, but what he wanted to be remembered for, his last sermon. And just kind of, for me, it's a little eerie, but my last point was, his point is to be first in love, to be first to serve. Like, that's the definition of greatness. So I really want, during this actual event, want to take the time to honor the people who are doing the work right here in real life. And that's what this is about. So we'll give out a number of awards, which I'm excited about. So before we get to that, I want to make sure that we listen to this important piece of that sermon, which leads to why I title our awards the Drum Major for Justice Awards.
You can be on his right hand and his left hand if you serve. It's the only way in. Every now and then, I guess all think ristic about that day when we will be victimized with what is life's final common denominator. That's something we call death. We all think about it, and every now and then I think about my own death, and I think about my own funeral, and I don't think of it in a morbid sense. Every now and then I ask myself, what is it that I would want said when I leave the word to you this morning? If any of you are around when I have to meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. And if you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long. Every now and then I wonder what I want them to say. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention that I have 300 or 400 other awards. That's not important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I'd like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to say that day that I tried to be right on the wall question. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try to feed the hungry. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. Yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. And all of the other shallow things will not matter. I won't have any money to leave behind. I won't have the fine and luxurious things of life to leave behind. But I just want to leave a committed life behind. And that's all I want to say. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word of song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian, or if I can bring salvation to a world once wrought, if I can spread the message as the Master taught, then my living will not be in vain. Yes, Jesus, I want to be on your right or your left side, not for any selfish reason. I want to be on your right or your left side, not in terms of some political kingdom or ambition, but I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others so that we can make of this old world a new world. And you can be on his right.
Yes, so that says it all. I really don't even need to say anything else. It's so impactful for me to really have that reflection on life. And every time I'm even at a funeral and someone passes, I just continue to think about the legacy I'm leaving and how I can be a drum major for justice. So let's jump right into it. I'm super excited. I want to thank the O'Day student ambassadors in advance for the reading of our great nominations. So because we only received 12 nominations, we are going to do honorable mentions because I think every nomination was phenomenal. I also know that some of the nominations were really long, so we did have to cut some of them a little brief. If you're here to accept your nomination, if you do have a word to say, please unmute yourself and talk when you are asked to, but please keep your remarks pretty brief. So let's jump right into it. So first up, we have our faculty awards, and we're going to start with our honorable mentions.
This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because Dr. Melvin Gupton has worked on so many initiatives to help students, especially first generation or otherwise underrepresented or underprepared students. He is a student success coach, the co-advisor for the Men of Color Leadership Group, and a representative on the new Faculty Senate Committee for Diversity. He works both personally and institutionally, in other words, to make a difference for others. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because Melvin's heart is in his work. Students mean the world to him, and their fair treatment, being able to help students have a fair chance at success, is a paramount to him. His service to the community should be recognized, especially as it relates so directly to the principles that Dr. King espoused. It gives us the great pleasure to give the 2020 Drum Major of Justice Faculty Award to Dr. Melvin Gupton.
Yeah, so Melvin, sorry, the last piece should have been cut out, but definitely an honorable mention. As you will see coming behind you are some amazing faculty nominations. So it was such a hard choice, but we want to honor and salute Melvin for all the work that you do on this campus. It is my great pleasure to work for you. Our next honorable mention.
This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because John has demonstrated a plethora of criteria that is the basis of this award. First, he is the advisor of Spectrum, the club on campus, which is the voice of the LGBT plus community and their allies at PSU Abington. Second, I have personally seen how John's open door policy provides opportunity for students, faculty, and staff to relay their issues and concerns in a manner that supports diversity of background, attitudes, and values. Finally, on a personal level, I thoroughly have enjoyed and benefited from learning far more about the LGBT plus community just from lunchtime talks with John over the years. The nominator feels that this nominee should be selected because great individuals don't need awards to recognize their achievements, and John Majewicz is no exception. He should be selected because John doesn't demonstrate the criteria for this award. The criteria is the core to his identity and as a person. In short, he embodies the criteria for this award and probably doesn't even realize it. So we want to take this time to salute John and thank you for all you do.
Woo! Awesome, John. It's also a pleasure to work with you and know you. And so, like I said, there were so many amazing nominations. We are going to give away 2 awards today. And could I have the student doing our first awardee?
This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because Professor Katie Matos's course instruction and club involvement consistently facilitate conversations surrounding diversity and inclusion. Since moving to online instruction, Katie has gone above and beyond to provide students with experiences and opportunities that broaden their perspectives and introduce them to a range of cultures and ideas. For example, in fall 2020, Professor Mato organized a virtual tour of Fault Lines, Contemporary Abstraction. The tour allowed students to engage closely with the museum's collection, as well as to learn about women artists from South Asia. Furthermore, she is organizing a virtual tour of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, which focuses on queer aesthetics, showing her advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community on our campus and beyond. The inclusive environment encountered in her courses is furthered by the examples she discusses in class. Given that Katie often incorporates works by queer, Latinx, African American, Asian, and women artists, demonstrating her interest and care in diversifying Abington's curriculum. Katie serves as the Abington Art Appreciations Club advisor, an organization formed by Katie and several first-year students at Penn State Abington. She has helped the executive board organize meetings that offer a range of perspectives on art, history, and culture, and has guided us to create engaging conversations online, which encourage member participation and find exceptional professors, curators, and artists to discuss a wide range of topics, many of which are relevant to the current social and political climate and are often left out of a traditional curriculum. In addition to organizing events that foster diversity and inclusion, Katie has also been a wonderful resource for queer students and students of color. She has undoubtedly advocated for diversity and inclusion within a myriad of spheres in the Penn State Abington community. This nominator feels this nominee should be selected because, and I quote, during my first year at Penn State, I took one of Katie's classes and found myself experiencing the sort of critical thinking, professional, and personal growth I craved from my college education. The skills that I developed in her course are some that have transcended beyond the subject of art history, as I find myself tapping into them in other courses and in my personal life. I have advanced my ability to think critically about the material I am presented with. I question what I hear and see and go beyond the surface level and analysis. I have sat in several other classes of hers, including sexuality and modern visual culture, contemporary women artists, and Latin American art, where she continued to engage with her students in critical ways. I leave lectures feeling as though my mentality and worldview have been transformed. She is always open to hearing students' views and fosters an environment that creates comfort and a safe place for students to share their thoughts. Some material can be difficult to discuss, and Katie never fails to be considerate about her approach to discussion. Her ability to communicate and engage with students, as well as her ability to encourage participation, has not been affected by the current circumstances. Every interaction feels personal, and I have at times forgotten what I was listening to in the lecture online. Katie is unlike any professor I have had at Penn State Abington. Her contributions to the university and the art department extend far beyond her teaching responsibilities. The care she shows for her students' academic and personal success knows no bounds, and she has transformed the art history courses into such an enriching experience for students. It gives us great pleasure to give the 2021 Drum Major of Justice Faculty Award to Professor Katie Mato. Would Professor Mato like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much for reading that. Wow. And thank you so much to whoever nominated me for this. I feel very lucky, and I'm just so glad that the things that I'm doing are actually helping somebody. So for me, that's the reason why I do what I do. It's because I want my students to get the most that they can out of their educational experience and beyond. So thank you so much. That made me very emotional, and yeah, I'm just so glad that students are getting something out of the events that we're planning and things like that. And I want to thank all of my colleagues, everybody at Abington. I can't do what I do without all of you. And I also really want to thank my students. They always show up. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie.
Very sweet.
Thanks, Katie. You are phenomenal. We cut out a lot and it was still really long. And I don't want to slight any of the other nominees, but we really need to get through all of the awards. So I have asked my students to try to cut some more, but we will give you your full nomination. And so our second awardee is going to be read by our own Sarah. Sarah?
So for our second faculty award, this nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because Pierce has consistently led or participated in events related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or ODAY for short. During his contributions today, Pierce is the co-founder of the Critical Reflections Cafe, an initiative to bring faculty together for thematic discussions. For 2020, the theme has been race, racism, and whiteness. He has also received the second grant in 2020 to internationalize his curriculum. He's provided multiple presentations on pronouncing Chinese names, as well as presentations on hacking the syllabus, an equitable approach to student grading. Prior to the previous chancellor's start at Abington, Pierce led a faculty senate task force on internationalization and diversity to provide recommendations to Dr. Fernandez for the actions in these areas. Almost every recommendation was acted upon by the chancellor. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because, since Pierce has arrived at Penn State Abington, he's demonstrated a true and deep commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion across his teaching, service, and research. He's been an advocate for social justice by engaging faculty, staff, and students in discussion and presentations on contemporary topics that affect our society and our campus community. So it gives me great pleasure to give the 2021 Drum Major of Justice Faculty Award to Pierce Salguero. Would Pierce like to say a few words?
Well, thank you. It seems a little bit of an anticlimax after Katie's amazing achievements, but I want to congratulate everybody else that has been nominated here, and just to say, to repeat the message that we got earlier, that we don't need awards to do what we do. I think I know Melvin and I know Katie pretty well. I don't know John as well, but I think I can speak for all of us by saying that just we do what we do because we have a passion for the students, and in my particular case, the nominator was not right that I was going down this path from the moment that I arrived at Abington. I was taught about social justice and about equitable education and about basically all of these priorities. I was taught them by this community, by the students and faculty and staff that many of you are here on this group with me. So this really, I feel, is not my award, but it's really an award just celebrating this really important focus that we have as a campus. And I'm really privileged and very, very grateful to be part of this amazing community. And Anissa, thank you so much for continuing this legacy, with you coming in and continuing our really important work that we're doing here. So congratulations to everybody.
Yes, thank you, Pierce. Thank you. It's a pleasure to work with you as well. We're going to move right into our staff awards. We have 2 honorable mentions.
So this nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because, in more than just title alone, Anissa is impacting the culture of the Abington community with novel workshops. Moreover, her creation of the annual cultural graduation alone is sufficiently noteworthy to garner this award. Her inevitable connection with students is second to none, and it is a joy to see how she connects with those from multiple backgrounds and how they feel comfortable enough to choose her office to hang out in. The nominator feels his nominee should be selected because Miss Anissa is a true diversity advocate because it is one of her social identities and not just a job title. She works sufficiently well with students, staff, and faculty, and even makes time to attend workshops. Aside from this, she has personally attended my classes where she talks to students on a journey of self-discovery, especially as it relates to issues of diversity and inclusion. If this is not enough, Anissa also mentors students and allows them room to run a workshop. For this type of commitment and forward thinking, I nominate Miss Anissa for this award. We want to take this time to salute Miss Anissa and thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you. Whoever nominated me. Yes, and our second staff honorable mention.
So this nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because she challenged herself as a member of the Abington book read, How to Be a Anti-Racist. Then more importantly, she challenged her staff of 20 professional and peer tutors in the center of student achievement. That challenge came in the form of having a conversation prompt regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion issues to start each staff meeting this past semester. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because asking these student leaders to share thoughts and experiences required a boldness in Caitlin that others would not approach. The fact that the tutors all participated speaks to the respect and trusting environment that Caitlin developed in her staff. We want to take this time to salute Caitlin Wolford. Thank you for all you do.
Congratulations, Caitlin. We're going to jump right into our awardee. Hello, staff.
This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because Paula is the ongoing voice championing equity on our campus. She works tirelessly to bring issues of social justice to the forefront and to play an active role in making our community a more welcoming place, especially for BIPOC faculty, staff, and students. Another nominator added Paula's unit CILC is responsible for training both staff and faculty on how to improve their service of diverse students populations. She has organized a faculty learning community during the spring 2020 semester and annually hosts staff and faculty diversity engagement programs. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because Paula should get this award because she does so much more for social justice than her role requires. She steps up when asked, even though this is not her particular responsibility. She sees it as everyone's responsibility and does more than her share to move these conversations and actions forward. Another nominator added, for her selfless and tireless commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels, Paula is a diversity and inclusion advocate at the institutional level, where she annually brings in experts to teach faculty and staff about working with students of all backgrounds. As busy as she is with managing the library system, Dr. Smith still finds time to devise programming for faculty and staff on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want to take this time to salute Paula Smith. Thanks for all you do.
Yes, and Paula is our 2020, that says 2020. Oh no, Paula is our 2021 Drum Age for Justice Staff Award. And Paula couldn't be here today. Melvin, I know, is accepting on her behalf, but we're going to make sure we mail Paula her award.
She also had a few words, and he said, may I read?
Oh my gosh, please do. Yes, and we are, Melvin, before you start, we are going to run over time. If you have to jump off, please do. You always can catch the replay on YouTube, but if you can stay to the end, that would be so great.
Okay. And so Paula says that in my sphere of influence, I try to create space for voices to be heard in an environment where people feel respected and valued. I believe that each of us has the ability and responsibility to create positive, equitable change in our communities and environments. I hope that my efforts have helped shed light on the inequalities in our Abington community, and that I have been instrumental in shaping some form of change for the betterment of all. So thank you, Paula.
Yay, Paula, we love you, we miss you. Next up, we have our Alumni Award.
This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because during the recent COVID-19 crisis in Philadelphia, Zelnetta and Alexis started a nonprofit called Rebuild the Block to help raise money for struggling Black businesses. They were featured in a recent Penn State University Collegian article. Some program highlights include, we're about helping the Black community as a whole. If a problem arises, we want to offer people the resources and support to get through it. We're about distributing wealth and knowledge to the Black community. We want to help with areas in the Black community that are underserved or overlooked. In order to accomplish this, the nonprofit team plans to offer resources including mental health and financial literacy assistance via the Rebuild the Block website. The mission is intended to shift according to current circumstances, suggestions given to them, and needs permitted in the Black-owned business community. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because these two young ladies are doing tremendous work in the community to serve the people. What better way to inspire the current student body to do big things than to honor recent graduates who are making big waves, while also celebrating their accomplishments. It gives us great pleasure to give the 2021 Drum Major of Justice Alumni Award to Alexis Acarolo and Zelnetta Clark. Would Alexis or Zelnetta like to say a few words?
Woo! Zelnetta?
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much for this award. I really want to thank Penn State Abington for giving me the push and the knowledge to really be an activist and advocate for the community. So thank you so much, everyone, and get involved. It's very important.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited I heard about it, but I definitely need to do more research and I'll connect with y'all. All right, we got 2 more awards left. So our Student Organization Award.
Okay, so as a new student organization on campus, this organization began hosting events in fall 2020. And although they were faced with having to organize an entirely remote program, they saw this complex circumstance as an opportunity to plan events that were relevant, constructive, and inspirational. They invited a diverse group of guest speakers and collaborated with different student organizations on campus to raise awareness of critical issues taking place on a national scale and to facilitate discussions centered on equity and diversity through artistic practice. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because the org should be encouraged to continue working towards their mission to diversify the arts. It also brings attention to the wonderful work they are doing while simultaneously inspiring other student organizations to join them in advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion through their respective interests. It gives us great pleasure to give the 2021 Drum Major of Justice Student Organization Award to Abington Art Appreciation.
Anyone here representing the org want to say anything? Hi.
Sure. I'm the president. I would just like to thank, first off, the entire executive board. They've been a big help planning 2 whole semesters worth of events. I want to thank the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I would also just like to add that I think Martin Luther King's legacy is best spread through the power of conversation. And I think that's why it made it so great for a Zoom environment. We could still conversate. I think it's about reaching across the aisle into the hearts and soul of fellow Americans. and then inspiring more justice in society today. So I think everybody, if they could take anything away from this meeting, is to practice the art of conversation and really get out there and make some change. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, cheers. That was amazing. Congratulations. And last but not definitely least, we do have a Student Honorable Mention Award and then an awardee. Up first.
So this nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. because the O'Day ambassadors have been front and center developing, implementing, and attending social justice programming across the entire campus and for the full array of social justice issues. This semester would not have been anywhere near as successful in terms of social justice programming had it not been for their heartfelt efforts. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because everything stated above and in addition, the level of professionalism and consciousness with this group is stellar. We want to take the time to salute the O'Day ambassadors. Thanks for all that you do.
Woo! Congrats, team. Y'all know I love y'all. And thanks for that nomination. I know who nominated y'all. All right, and then last but certainly not least, our student awardee.
Okay. This nominee demonstrates the spirit and legacy of MLK because Beverly did something that might have been very challenging. In November to high-level Abington, administrators to ask the university to do more. Beverly reached out representing Black students, BSU, ASL, sister, and brother to brother, to ask the university to do more and laid out a number of requests eloquently and collaboratively. The nominator feels this nominee should be selected because the type of email Beverly created is challenging. In a pandemic, it's easy to punt on problems and handle them later, kick the can down the road. Beverly's email shows that what people need to do for racial justice. Work together, be honest, share feelings, and be courageous. It gives us great pleasure to give the 2021 Drum Major of Justice Student Award to Beverly Plaside. Would Beverly like to say a few words?
Thank you so much. When I wrote this letter, I didn't really intend it to be something beyond me, but as I was writing and reflecting on what I felt needed to be done and said for Black students, I realized this isn't just me. This is for everyone who looks like me, for everyone who cares for me. And I wanted to address how the university's responses were never enough. Words aren't enough. Actions speak louder than words. And I gave them 5 actions they could do to show how much they value our lives and how our lives are more than a political statement. We are valued, we exist. And I want to say thank you so much for this award.
Well, congratulations, Beverly. I'm super proud of you. And I'm here to totally support you. So let's congratulate all of our awardees. Super amazing, exciting work that's being done. And like I said, the shorted nominations did not even do it justice, but the work continues and you all will be mailed your award. So we're super excited about that. So I'm going to end with 5 minutes of Martin Luther King's last speech. Kathy, are you trying to talk? No, not to us. Okay, just want to make sure. Of Martin Luther King's last speech, which is I've been to the mountaintop, but I love this video in particularly because it talks about the parable that he refers to within the speech of the Good Samaritan. Of course, compares it to the biblical reference, but even beyond religion. I just love how this video in particular was put together. You'll see what I'm talking about. So we'll watch it. I believe it's 5 minutes, and then we'll just take 5 minutes in another breakout session quickly to kind of just unwrap, and then we'll just end. But I want to make sure we get one more intimate encounter. All right, so enjoy.
One day a man came to Jesus. He wanted to raise some questions about some vital matters of life. At points he wanted to trick Jesus. That's right. And show him that he knew a little more than Jesus knew and throw him off base. Now that question could have easily ended up in a philosophical and theological debate. But Jesus immediately pulled that question from midair and placed it on the dangerous curve between Jerusalem and Jericho. He talked about a certain man who fell among thieves. You remember that a Levite, and a priest passed by on the other side. They didn't stop to help him. Finally, a man of another race came by. He got down from his beast, decided not to be compassionate by proxy, but he got down with him, administered first aid, and helped the man in need. Jesus ended up saying this was the good man, this was the great man, because he had the capacity to project the eye into the thou and to be concerned about his brother. Now, you know, we use our imagination a great deal to try to determine why the priest and the Levite didn't stop. The times we say they were busy going to a church meeting, an ecclesiastical gathering, and they had to get on down to Jerusalem so they wouldn't be late for their meeting. At other times, we would speculate that there was a religious law that one who was engaged in religious ceremonials was not to touch a human body 24 hours before the ceremony. And every now and then we began to wonder whether maybe they were not going down to Jerusalem, down to Jericho, rather, to organize a Jericho Road Improvement Association. That's a possibility. Maybe they felt that it was better to deal with the problem from the causal root rather than to get bogged down with an individual effect. But I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me. It's possible that those men were afraid. You see, the Jericho Road is a dangerous road. I remember when Mrs. King and I were first in Jerusalem. We rented a car and drove from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And as soon as we got on that road, I said to my wife, I can see why Jesus used this as the setting for his parable. It's a winding, meandering road. It's really conducive for ambushing. You start out in Jerusalem, which is about 1,200 miles, or rather 1,200 feet above sea level. And by the time you get down to Jericho, 15 or 20 minutes later, you're about 2,200 feet below sea level. That's a dangerous road. In the days of Jesus, it came to be known as the bloody paths. You know, it's possible that the priest and the Levite looked over that man on the ground and wondered if the robbers were still around. Or it's possible that they felt that the man on the ground was merely faking. And he was acting like he had been robbed and hurt in order to seize them over there, lure them there for quick and easy siege. And so the first question that the priest asked, the first question that the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But then the Good Samaritan came by, and he reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? That's the question before you tonight. Not if I stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to my job? Not if I stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to all of the hours that I usually spend in my office every day and every week as a pastor? The question is not if I stop to help this man in need, what will happen to me? The question is, if I do not stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to them? That's the question.
Like, how amazing is the way they did that. And so I for me, it just translates to what's going on in present day.
One day,
I think a lot of times it's just like what, why would we help people? No, what if we don't help them, right? Like, what if we all just ask ourselves that question? And although when he was talking about sanitation workers striking, we could be talking about a number of things in present day. So my last question for you as you reflect is like, how can you take that thought of the Good Samaritan and that story of helping people, and what happens if you don't help, and put it into actions in 2021? All right, so let's just do our last quick round of breakout rooms and we'll come right back together. I can't wait to see who I get put with this time. All right, Habiba, you all set? All right, let's go.
You're muted.
Okay, now I know. Thank you. Sorry, it mutes you automatically when you come back in. Are you sharing your screen? You don't see my screen, right? Okay, good. All right, so thank you. As people start to come back, let me just get my gala review back. Okay, there we go. Oh, we still have 19 people. I'll take it. So thank you all so much for coming back. In the words so January 20th was definitely probably empowering for like so many people. Although I wanted to end with a Maya Angelou quote, I want to end with an Amanda Gorman quote. How many people heard her poem at the inauguration, right? Oh my gosh, so amazing. So I just want to make sure I get it right. So I want to read it word for word, because for me and all that I try to do professionally and personally, it just impacted me so. And then the last line in her poem, I just want us to read it and reflect on it, or listen to it. So she said, "There's always light." And I know sometimes we probably feel like it's dark or it's cloudy or it doesn't look like it's going to happen. But she said, "There's always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." right? And so for me, I hope for all of you that translates into there is light. So you have to see it, and sometimes you have to be it. And for some of us, let's be it for times when the other of us cannot. And so thank you all so much. I hope this was so impactful. I have like chills, goosebumps, everything, and then I have to go into my next meeting. But I know we ran over, so I really just value your time and you all being here. And hopefully this just starts our semester and our year off amazing. We are going to have an extraordinary 2021. I'm claiming it in advance so all of you can affirm it with me. And I look forward to seeing you throughout all of the virtual programs on campus. If you're on campus, O'Day is open 4 days a week, and I do come to campus. So if you're on campus, I also would love to see your face. So thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to my staff for making the program amazing as always. Have a great semester, everyone. See you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Good program.